is the art of integrative living, increasing intuitive flow. Tonight, we are going to be really diving into curiosity and intuition and how these two aspects of consciousness can really help us move through challenges as they come up in our lives. We just finished a calendar year. 2023 is over, and we are leaning into and breathing into a whole new year, 2024. So as we look ahead, starting with today, the 2nd of January, consider 2024. What kinds of things are you hoping to see differently? Are there challenges in your life that are coming up that you're experiencing, or that perhaps you anticipate that maybe having a different perspective could support you in your own growth, and in the growth of the relationship or the situation or the circumstance? And when we think about intuition, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about intuition, aren't there? There's a lot of things. There's the common misconception that intuition is something that's supernatural or it's mystical. Oh, you can't hear anything, Karen. So let's keep going. And what she misses, hopefully not much, she can get in the recording afterwards. So back to intuition and looking at our beliefs that we may have around this energetic flow. As I mentioned, intuition is supernatural, it's mystical, or maybe that only certain people are intuitive. You either have it or you don't. Another misconception is that intuition is always right. That gut feeling that it is always right and therefore should be listened to. That is a misconception. Also, that intuition is the same as instinct. They are related, however, they are two different processes in our biological system. Another misconception is that intuitive decisions are made just out of the blue, right? They're just downloaded and they come through you, and they are it's like a snap of the fingers. This is also a misconception. Another myth that's out there is that you cannot improve your intuition. It is a process that exists and you access it, and that's the end of it. Whatever level it's at is what you get. Another thing, it's about gut feelings. This ties into that instinct level. So it certainly does involve the gut, but it does involve a lot more of our body systems, which we'll go into a little bit this evening. And the last thing, that intuition is irresponsible. Right? If people are relying solely on intuition in their decision making, they might be looked upon as irresponsible or flighty. Maybe their feet aren't on the ground, but this is also a misconception as well. Decision making is a multifaceted, complex process, and intuition is absolutely a part of that process, a very valuable part. So, who am I? My name is Amanda Hayes. I'm the owner of Ahamo Coaching, and I started my journey in personal development way back in 2007 when I was teaching at a middle school in a low income area with teaching kids that had a lot of challenges, a lot of really unimaginable challenges. And I saw there how challenges can be overcome with mindset and empowerment, education, all of those pieces. And most of all, love. Love was a huge piece to those kids' development. From there, I went into the higher education space and really focused on productivity, motivation, right? How do we move energy through us and into the world? That became my passion. That became my focus for almost a decade as I worked with adults in the education space. And once I left there, I decided to really lean in to this idea of productivity, motivation, focusing on what blocks that energy from moving through us effortlessly, and lean into my business. An important piece to this story is certainly a personal one. Even though I was doing very well professionally, at the university and then launching my business, I was still struggling. I had done a lot of work over the years in the cognitive space, working on myself through therapy, research, tons of research, personal growth seminars, retreats, and yet there still seemed to be this innate emotional inertia that would it's felt like it was pulling my lower consciousness into the yuck, as I so, eloquently call it. No matter how much work I did, there just seemed to be this part of me that wasn't shifting. And it wasn't until I started really paying attention to my own intuition that my own healing journey began to really get some traction. And the more I leaned into my own intuitive flow, the more I began to heal. And so the work, the research around all of that is what leads me here today, talking to you about intuition, about how to access and develop that intuitive flow in order to make it through challenging times or level up if times aren't challenging. But let's face it, in our world today, with everything going on, we are all facing some amount of challenge, and intuition can only help us as we level up our consciousness. So what even is intuition, right? It's kind of a mysterious thing. So when we think about intuition, we can take a couple of different approaches to it. And let me move some stuff around here. So yeah, so when we look at the Western philosophy, or kind of our current paradigm, it's the kind of fundamental ability of human reasoning to comprehend the true nature of reality. So when we're looking at kind of an ineffable force of reasoning to grapple with the pure existence of consciousness. And with Western philosophy, Plato, he considered intuition as really a basic component of human cognition. He considered it as essential for understanding deeper truths beyond basic sensory perception or logic. So for most of Western tradition, intuition is an essential component of how we experience our lives. And then when we look into Eastern philosophy, this is intuition is seen as kind of transcendent, right, or above the conventional or rational thinking. It's kind of a path to understanding these deeper spiritual truths about life. And in Zen practice, interestingly, they use riddles. They use riddles to stimulate our intuition. That's why, that the idea of riddles, because it subverts our rational and our ego mind. So through that, when we're subverting those two aspects of our mind, then intuition can kind of come through and breathe into the thinking process. And when we look at kind of modern psychology, right, in the last 50 or so years, cognitive psychology, intuition is also absolutely a recognized process as a rapid unconscious processing that occurs in parallel with analytic thinking, right? So it's a piece of our neurological functioning that occurs alongside analysis, logic, reasoning. And often it is associated with making these really quick decisions subconsciously. And I think that's where some of that myth and misconception came from, was from this idea of cognitive psychology, even though there is certainly some truth to the idea that intuition can help us think very quickly. It is certainly a bigger piece to the puzzle than that. And in the mid 20th century, intuition was seen as solely subconscious, right? But it was also seen as a universal human ability. So it was not saved for the precious few. And then neuroscience, so a more recent field of study. This is fascinating. They're really finding through brain scans that intuitive processes, it kind of lights up several regions of the brain, right? It's rapid, unconscious, and it lights up several regions of our brain. And the research is really suggesting that intuition is associated with activity of the right brain, which contrasts it with the more analytical processes of the left brain. So this kind of is showing what we've kind of known all along, right? It's more of a right brain process, more of a creative, less linear process. But when we boil this all down, we can look at the idea that intuition is a creative, qualitative process, right? It's entirely subjective, it's very personal, and it is subjective to the individual experiencing it, which means it means what you make it mean. Nobody is writing this story but you.
Mm.
So when we look at how we receive information in our body, we receive information through biological sensing systems, right? I won't go into this in too much detail. This is neurobiology, but
Right.
essentially we have outer senses. Those are the ones that we're most familiar with: our eyesight, our hearing, smell, taste, touch. Those five senses help us really interact with
Yes.
an objective reality around us. And then we also have inner senses. So these are the senses within our body that we can develop to become aware of. When we are feeling an emotion, all of that data, all of that information that we are receiving is coming from our inner senses. Okay. So as we develop our inner sense, our in what's called embodied awareness, then we can become more in tune with how we are feeling. And we'll dive into that a little more. But the inner senses, we're looking at our gut, right? That's one of our inner senses. It's a very important part of our inner sense. We're looking at our heart. Our heart space has brain cells, and we can absolutely sense, right? If you think about feeling grieving or love, you can feel it in your heart. You get sensation from your heart. Our lungs, right? That tightness in our chest that we might feel, that is a sensation. There's other sensations that can come along with it. um our fascia, right? All the tissue that's inside of our body that kind of encases all of our organs and bones and tissue, that is called fascia, and that is like a whole sensory, like when you get a tingle running through your body, that's your fascia. That's a huge um that's a huge message sender for this innate sensing system. Yeah. And then your skin, even though it is external, it has an internal sensing, right? Goosebumps. It has an internal sensing aspect to it. So those inner senses are hugely important when we're looking at creating a more body-based awareness. And then a very interesting set of sensations is called proprioception, which is a sense of movement. And so that's going to be where you are in space in relation to other things in space, right? So if you think about your arm and you hold it out to the side, you can tell without looking at it where it is in relation to the rest of your body. That's proprioception. Okay. If you think about another person in the room with you, you can tell where they are. You can sense where they are without looking at them through your proprioceptive senses. So that comes from the muscle, like how your muscles work. That's a huge part of them. This is a huge athletic development, area because of it's very muscular based. Your inner ear for your sense of balance. That's a very big one. And then your fascia as well. All that internal tissue that moves when you move. So that all comes into play as you're looking at what how you are in space in relation to other things in space. And this is non external sense related. This is all kind of internally sense. So why is this important? Well, it's important because intuition at its core is data coming in to our field of experience, right? Anything that comes in that we are able to sense is data, and it's going to come in to our awareness in one of these ways, one of these very finite ways. Oh, and I almost forgot, the last little bit is called neuroception, and that's a little tiny piece in our brainstem. And this is instinct. This is where our instinct lives. This is is it dangerous or is it safe? This is our ability to make a very quick judgment on safety. So while intuition is involved in this, it is very much a primal instinct, a primal thing that has helped us evolve over millennia. Okay. So we're looking at data, and this is important because knowing how sensations can arise and building awareness on how a sensation can arise in the body helps us develop intentional body awareness or embodied awareness. And this is a hugely foundational piece to growing your intuitional awareness as well. So our world today is conceptual awareness based, right? It's very cognitively based. It's seen as dominant over embodied awareness or body-based awareness. When we are talking about intuition, though, developing embodied awareness is like having a direct line to our subconscious mind, because as things come into awareness, they come into awareness through our internal sensing system. So that is where our subconscious becomes conscious. And this is also where most of our intuitive knowledge resides.
Mm.
So it's a direct experiential understanding of our internal state without the mediation of thought, right? It's a direct line to our subconscious. And the more attuned that you are to your body sensations, the more likely you are to detect and interpret intuitive information accurately. So all that being said, conceptual awareness is also important in this process, right? It's key to developing intuitive awareness, really. So you experience it, you develop the awareness, but then what do you do with it, right? You need to be able to connect the dots. However, an over-reliance on this rational analysis, it can drown out those intuitive signals. It can kind of dampen them, as we tend to in our Western world favor cognitive thinking over the softer intuitive or embodied feelings. But it's important to remember that a balanced approach really does enhance intuition. As an example, when you're reflecting on your past intuitive experiences and what happened, whether you listened to them or not, and what the outcome was, it can help you recognize patterns in how intuition expresses through you. So then you can better listen for them in the future moving forward. You can strengthen your ability that way.
Yes.
So let's do a little exercise as far as what embodied experience really feels like. So think right now, consider an internal sensation to focus on. So for example, I'm standing up, right? I'm standing on one leg. So one of my legs is feeling more tense than the other. So choose an internal sensation to focus on, something that you're experiencing in your body right now. So let's say, for example, that your eyes are squinting, or that you're leaning back in your chair while you watch this on your screen, or that maybe your little toe feels a bit squished in your shoe. Just notice what that sensation is. And in your mind, describe it to yourself briefly. Just become aware of it, right? Squinty eyes, relaxed back, squished toe, tense muscle. Now, change your position so that the sensation goes away. I'm going to move my weight to the other leg. When you do this, notice that once you adjust your position, you can no longer feel that same sensation.
Yeah.
You might feel residual effects of it, right?
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of pressure, maybe your toe is tingly, or instead of the pressure on your back, you're feeling like a release, right? You might feel residual effects, but the sensation is gone. So using conceptual awareness, right? You can think, you can remember what happened, you can connect the dots. I moved my body, the sensation changed, right? But you can't actually feel the same sensation unless I shift my weight back to my other leg. I cannot feel it. We can only experience any given sensation in the present moment.
Okay.
Right? That's where embodied awareness is huge, comes into play. It's important because experience can only happen in the present moment, right? While we can think about our physical sensations and remember what they felt like, we cannot re-experience them in the future. So developing intuitive awareness is a similar attunement, right? You're becoming familiar and intimate with the subtle signals that our bodies give us, and being able to receive the message as it emerges in real time, right? So becoming well-versed in embodied awareness, it builds the foundation for the next crucial steps in developing intuitive awareness, and that is developing a practice of curiosity. So what do I mean by this? Curiosity is a high vibrational mindset. It's not attached to any specific outcome. It opens us. It opens our heart. So
Mhm.
curiosity is the vehicle. It's how we listen to our intuition. Okay. It is a way for us to practice opening and letting go. It is a state of being. So, in some difficult times that I've experienced recently, I have found myself really leaning into this practice of curiosity in order to access that intuitive part of me. When our emotions are jumbled, right? Our emotional brains, our bodies are all a mess and chaotic, and our brains can't make logical sense of something. Intuition is the thing that can move us forward in a way that aligns with our highest self toward our potential. And curiosity is how we listen.
Mhm.
Curiosity allowed me to hear my intuition and achieve clarity, even amidst a lot of emotional and logistical chaos. I felt even even while it felt like my world was falling apart in this time recently, also felt a certainness, right? A calmness, kind of a confidence about the choices I was making, even though they were not easy choices. So it's important to remember that intuition's not going to lead you down an easy path necessarily, but it will lead you down the path that you need. So we're going to talk about tonight the cultivating a practice of curiosity through two key questions that's going to help shift your energy in order to access this innate superpower that you do have, because we all have it. We all have intuitive flow, and access to an infinite amount of intuitive flow, in fact.
Okay.
Specifically, how can we practice curiosity when we're triggered? And maybe it's not our typical response, right? Maybe our typical response to a certain scenario looks more like anger or resentment or overwhelm or withdrawal or justification. What can we do to diffuse those hot, limiting responses in those moments and respond in a more loving and relational way?
Mhm.
As I mentioned a minute ago, there was a time recently where it really felt like my entire world was falling apart. My primary relationship of over a decade was having some really significant and big challenges, and I really felt completely out of control emotionally. Um, I didn't know what was going to happen, nor did I know what the right thing even was to happen. I was overwhelmed, I was confused, and I was really unable to think clearly or to feel like I could think clearly through the exceptional burden that I was experiencing. And the only thing that I could do in that moment of darkness was let go of attachment to any particular outcome and let go of the fear that I had about the future and practice this present moment embodied awareness, right? And then get curious about what was happening for me right in that moment. Get curious. And most importantly, I had to be willing to feel uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? Feel uncomfortable. Let the emotions move through me, as painful as thick as they were. This non judgmental embodied awareness of my emotional state as energy moved through me to allow me to go deeper, right? It allowed a different kind of answer to emerge and a new pathway to find me, right? And I found the strength to make a choice. And it was not an easy choice. And it's not the job of intuition to keep you feeling safe and secure, right? Intuition is going to help you expand. It's going to help you emerge in bigger and brighter ways to guide you to your potential. And it may not feel like the path that you want in the moment, but it is the path that you need to get to your highest potential. You know, it was a scary choice and it's one that's still shaking out. But through this, I am practicing curiosity and I'm really leaning into feeling my emotions. And even when things feel like too much, I still feel a certainty about my path. That is the power of intuition. So, the first question to shift into this mindset is, what do I need right now? This is hugely important.
Mhm.
And it's important to note that this may not have an answer right away, right? There may not be a voice externally or internally that comes swooping in and gives you a clear answer. The key here is to ask and be curious, be receptive. You have to allow the answer to emerge. Okay. And this question is powerful because it changes our attitude, it changes our mindset. So instead of maybe a typical response that you might have to a trigger, whether it's something you did or someone else did or a world event, instead of a typical response that might be, oh, why did I do that? Or what's wrong with you? Or what's wrong with that person or organization or company or whatever, instead of asking those questions in that way, these are simply judgments that are disguised as questions, right?
Right.
And judgments result in a closed heart. Judgments close your heart. But this question, what do I need right now? It opens the heart. It accesses it. It helps us access this vulnerable, authentic space within us, this very human space within us, right? It acknowledges this lower vibrational energy in a very non-judgmental, holistic, and accepting way. It opens us to be receptive so that we can begin to listen. This question, what do I need right now? It cracks the door for curiosity to open our hearts. So this is a busy slide. We're going to just briefly kind of overview this, but the question, what do we need right now, is important because at any moment that you are feeling upset, triggered, activated, your nervous system is just firing in all directions, that is a signal that there is a pathway available to you for growth. Okay? Now, most of us are out of touch with what our needs actually are, right? Most of us move about our world from one distracted state to another distracted state, right? We're not sitting in our bodies. We're not fully present right now, experiencing this moment. So when you begin to see your current needs, you begin to see the context of your current state. You begin to build your awareness to be bigger, to be more holistic, to include all of your parts, right? And not just fixate on the parts that you don't like, because that can happen. Now, some of you might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow developed this theory around the idea of motivation, and I've used this quite a bit over the years in my education experience. Now, this is known in the educational realm as the hierarchy of needs. However, it is actually called by Maslow the hierarchy of motivation. And motivation is the concept of how we move energy through us, right? How we take energy from the universe, right? And transfer it through our bodies and into the world.
Interesting.
So when we look at the hierarchy of motivation, what we're looking at here in Maslow's tier is this eight tier model is where are the blocks? At what level are there blocks to this energy moving through us? And those blocks are signals to what we need, right? And what we need is a pathway for growth. That is an indicator of a pathway for growth. So understanding the vibrational level of our needs. So Maslow's hierarchy aligns quite well with the 7 levels of consciousness. So when you overlay the 7 levels of consciousness with his model of needs, you can see a pattern as far as understanding the vibration of our needs helps us open to the intuitive flow that's available to us. So the idea is that even if you are struggling with something at a level 1 or 2, right? You're feeling stuck. You're feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling like there's just no way you're going to get through this. There's no way that problem's going to be fixed, right? There's no way that conflict in those countries is going to, it's hopeless, right? You're feeling yucky. It is entirely possible to find and access your growth opportunity in that stage. So when you go to that level 1 and 2 level, you can see exactly where you are, right? So if you're feeling level 1 and 2, the deficiency needs would be like, do you have concerns about your immediate needs not being met, right? Level 1 is shelter, food, water, those things. Do you have concerns about your physical needs? Or very highly empathetic concerns about others' needs. That's also level 1. Level 2, security, stability, predictable environment. All of that feels threatened when we are looking at difference. Whether it's perceived, whether it's real, it is important information, right? Now, what Maslow said is that in order to work on each tier, you needed to satisfy all of the requirements of the tiers below. And well, to some extent that is true. I do disagree with him slightly because I believe that in every tier there is a growth need and there's also a deficiency need, right? So there's two distinctions with that. So if you are kind of looking at something from a scarcity perspective, that's a deficiency need. If you're looking at something from a more abundance or adding on, kind of a pulling toward energy, that's considered a growth need. Now, well, like I said, Maslow had a difference between those two. I think that growth needs can absolutely be at any level. So when we look at, say, level 1, if you are feeling, fundamentally physically threatened, then there are growth needs that you can do. It is empowerment. There is empowerment available at every single level. And I also believe that we can resonate at potentially multiple levels within the tier. So you can be working on level 3 needs and level 1 needs at the same time, possibly. So we won't go through all these, but I think in the handout, which I can put a link in the chat, there's some examples of this with the relationship, what the levels look like. And like I said, more than one level might resonate with you, but the idea is that our needs are signals of where we need to direct our energy, right? So if you can identify, level, I'm feeling a level 3 need right now in my relationship because I'm feeling lonely and disconnected, then the growth opportunity of that level 3 is to work on improving your communication skills, right? To deepen the emotional connection. You want to foster that sense of belongingness and connection. And that really aligns with Maslow's level 3, the belonging and love needs. So, you kind of find where you are on the tier because you're going to resonate somewhere. And that's where you can find your pathway toward growth. It can provide some hope. And then another example, work-life balance. I mean, there's a lot of things. And one thing I want to really stress is that anything that is occurring out there in the world, there's a lot of big problems going on today. But anything that's occurring on that macro level, it's also occurring within us on a micro level, right? We can look at our reactions to social unrest, climate change, international conflict. I have charts for all of those. We can look at all of that, and it's very, very natural and normal to feel overwhelmed and feel stressed and feel in a lower energy vibration due to all of that incoming information that comes at us. But here's the thing. What happens in the world happens within us too. Complex relational dynamics occur at all levels of conscious experience, from singular individuals to very large groups, right? Countries even. So it's exceedingly important for all of us to be working on the micro by getting curious and being willing to feel uncomfortable. This is how we change the world. So another thing to remember is that emotions, right? As you're beginning to build this embodied awareness of the sensations that are coming up within you, emotions are energy in motion, right? Emotion, energy in motion. They are meant to move through us. Okay.
Wow.
If we can develop embodied awareness and stay in the feeling while it is moving through us, right? We can switch our cognitive brain from judgment, which is closed, to curiosity, which is open. And then we crack the door open to that third pillar of conscious experience, which is intuition, right? Okay. Then that's where we open it to flow in. And new answers are going to begin to emerge, right? New clarity, new confidence. So asking the question, what do I need right now? It switches your cognitive logical brain to a more open state. And it does this while you are fully present in feeling your emotions, even if they're painful, feeling them move through you while you're fully present and you're building this deep, deep awareness. So for me, in my most vulnerable and painful state, this question, what do I need right now? It empowered me because it validated my experience as real and it validated it as important. And it also allowed me to see through the painful emotions in a very real, very, very nurturing way, right? It's able to see the context, the bigger picture, a holistic view, zoomed out, right? I could zoom out enough to see this bigger picture of who I really was. I could detach from the content of the situation and open myself to the process of witnessing and being fully present in. That's the power of curiosity. The second question is a beautiful question. Second question to cultivating a practice of curiosity is, what can I open myself to here? Oh, I love this so much. It's soft, it's beautiful, but it's so powerful. This is where we really lean in to the frequency of curiosity on an energetic level, and we begin to listen. Okay. This question requires raw authenticity, right? It creates a receptive container to allow answers to emerge. There is a deeper voice within you that's prompting you and guiding you. And this question, what can I open myself to here, will help you develop a deeper relationship with that part. What message wants to emerge? What would like to be brought into awareness? Is there something I'm actively avoiding all the time because I'm not ready to be aware of it right now? Your life will change when you begin to allow these truths in. And it's okay if you are afraid of that change or you're not ready for it. You just have to be willing to lean in to what makes you uncomfortable and be willing to feel your feelings. Hugely important. And curiosity, the energy of curiosity, allows what is in our subconscious and our unconscious awareness to emerge and find us, right? We don't know what's going to emerge, right? That unknowing can be terrifying. So just know that you don't have to do what the voice says, right? Intuition comes up. It's not necessarily right. However, listen to it, right? You'll use your conceptual awareness to analyze patterns as it goes on. You want to start practicing that listening. Yeah. And another thing to note, subconsciously, we all resist change. We all lean in toward the familiar, even if it's not guiding us to our highest potential. The familiar, the path of least resistance, it's a very normal human tendency for our biological human selves to increase survival. It's ingrained within us. So it's very normal to resist change. And one thing that we do, we slow down this rate of change by moving out of our bodies, out of that embodied consciousness and into our minds. So that way we don't have to feel uncomfortable. So these two questions, what do I need right now? What can I open myself to here? They remind us gently to come back into our bodies, feel our feelings, allow them to move through us, and open our hearts to a greater truth. And this is a truth that comes in through the receptive, intuitive flow that we can only hear by practicing. So what are we listening for, right? Well, that might depend on your current energetic level and emotional vibration. But there are 7 levels of intuitive energy flow. So looking at the Maslow chart, right, we looked at finding your frequency with where you are to determine what your needs are, what your opportunity for growth. And then when you're looking at what you can open to here, there's also 7 levels to help you direct where you are and find your opportunity for opening. So connecting with the growth need energy, no matter what level you're at, it's going to connect you to what I call the generative side of intuitive energy flow. So with intuitive energy, you've got a generative side and a receptive side. And the need question connects us with generative. It's going to give us an action plan to move us in a direction, right? This question, what can I open to here? It cracks open the door to shift your cognitive mind and your perspective to begin to perceive what opportunities lie in your present circumstance. So if we are looking at a level 3 vibrational frequency, as we did on the relationship slide, this could guide you toward forgiveness, understanding, rational, effective problem solving. So it gives you something to hone in on. It gives you an opening, a crack in the door, because intuition is absolutely present at all 7 levels. And it's more and more present the higher you go. However, it is absolutely present in these lower levels. And it's so important to find where that is, because once you tap into your intuition, even if you're feeling in a very low vibrational moment, then that's the empowerment right there. That's the empowerment. That's where you feel the energy begin to move through you and have somewhere to go. So with intuitive flow, as I said, it is a process, which means, to kind of reiterate in a slightly different way, no matter where we're vibrating, it can still move through us. It's just going to look differently depending on how we are looking in that moment. So when we can widen our perception to the intuitive flow that is available to us, then we begin to understand the questions that we can ask to guide us to a higher intuitive flow state. And it is also important to keep in mind, this is not always an effortless process. It can take conscious thought. It can take conscious choice to shift your mindset and open your pathways for perception. And what you're doing in these moments, you're rerouting your neural pathways, right? You're leaning into this unfamiliar territory. So do not be discouraged if this does not come easily at first, right? So when you look at this, it's important to note, and this is also in the handout, I'll put the link in the chat, which levels resonate with you. And are there levels of intuition with which you're already familiar? There might be some that you already work with regularly. And maybe there's some that you're not, that you'd like to expand into or experience more frequently, right? To help guide you throughout your life. And, moving forward, the key here is practicing this embodied awareness. That's how you listen. Embodied awareness and curiosity is how you start to hear these signals as they come up, because they're going to come up through your internal sensing, right? And it's a soft emergent process, and it just takes practice. And practice and reflection, really. So engaging in reflective strategies in order to contextualize and synthesize the data that you're receiving is going to be key to be able to interpret it effectively moving forward. And also, if you're experiencing it, it is real, okay? Intuition is an extremely subjective process. So if you are experiencing it, it is a real thing, and it is really happening. Okay, it's easy to write it off because it doesn't fit into our current Western paradigm of experiencing, but it is very real, very, very real. And the more you validate it, the more you're going to see it. Okay, so notice it when it comes up. It doesn't have to make sense, right? You don't have to have conceptual awareness around something. It can just be what it is. And the key is just to begin practicing noticing, right? Bring it into your conceptual awareness, not to make sense of it, but to notice and file it away for future synthesis.
Mhm.
Now, in order to kind of reiterate the process here, this can be applied into every area of life, right? From relationships to parenting to work to holistic healing, spirituality, finances, even. You know, the first step is embodied awareness, right? That is key. Embodied awareness and allowing emotions to move. The heavier the emotions, the more painful it will be, but the more they need to move. Okay? When heavy, dense emotions move in your body, it can feel like grief. That is grief. Grief is the movement of very heavy stuff. But that's okay. It has to move. You do not want it stuck there. So embodied awareness, allow them to move, right? And then that first question, what do I need right now? Find your generative opportunity. What can you do? What action can you take to move forward in your current situation, right? And then the second key question, what can I open myself to here? Where is my intuitive flow pathway? Right? So this pathway, it can help shift your mindset in many different areas of your life, more than even just here. It opens your consciousness to becoming more perceptive to intuitive flow. So some key takeaways, you know, intuition is a developable skill. It absolutely is. It is a skill that we all have access to, an infinite amount of intuition, truly. The more you practice, the more it will emerge. Okay. Regular practices to build that embodied awareness as well as the conceptual awareness in that, you know, kind of flow dynamic. Journaling, meditation, even yoga. Just the more you open yourself to that skill of listening with your whole being, the more easily you're going to recognize the intuition when it's coming through you. Also, challenges that you come up to, right? Blocks that you feel, difficult emotions that you're experiencing. This is a signal that growth is happening, that there is a growth pathway possible for you. And it's not always easy, and it's not always what you want, but intuition will take you where you need. Okay. Learning from mistakes. When you find that your intuition is off, which it will be, there will be times where it's off. That's, you know, we're human. It's a valuable lesson. That's where that conceptual awareness comes in to recognize patterns like, oh, you know, hold off on your judgment. It's observation and curiosity, right? Oh, I wonder, you know, how I interpreted that and, you know, misread that, or I wonder why that came up if that wasn't right. You know, keeping that curiosity vibration is going to help you learn what you needed to learn from that situation. And then also community is vital for growth. Community is a huge sticking point when you're trying to develop intuition, curiosity, moving through difficult challenges. Truly connecting with other people is a fundamental piece of who we are as human beings. That connection is part of the healing process. So where you can find it, I highly encourage you to take advantage of it. And then lastly, celebrate your growth, right? This is an important aspect of expanding your consciousness and your intuition is celebration. Being aware of where you are right now, where you've been, your journey. Acknowledging the growth that you've had is hugely important to becoming, you know, to continuing the trajectory and staying motivated while you're on it. And then opportunities for additional support. I have a brand new group, the Art of Living Facebook group, and also the Awaken Journal, which you may or may not already have. If you don't, it is on that QR code. I am going to be launching a course in a short period of time here, all about this curiosity, intuition, and it goes into Maslow's hierarchy, so you can really get in there and put it into your life, developing and really supporting you in a daily practice. of expanding your consciousness and your intuition. And then, of course, there's one-on-one coaching and the Energy Leadership Index assessment if you're curious about your energetic inner landscape or kind of a map, so you can figure out where your point A is, and if you want some help getting or mapping to point B. So thank you very much for listening, for being here.